Hey everyone, it's been a while. Um, I know it's been a while because uh, I've thought about it like every day. Well, not every day, more like every once in a while. I have no reason for these, so we're all kind of freaking out about stuff. That's fine. I thought we'd do something a little different, a little less, I guess, normal. I want to say. So I have been tasked with a friend of mine who you've probably heard the music of um, in one of my videos, but probably not. A friend of mine by the name of Mr. Eclsnizer, which I think that's the name of his channel, will, I'll see. I'll put it in the description though, has instructed me to help him enable the widespread panic and uh, output of fake news. And I figured, well, why not bring that fake news to you all so you can help me write it? I'm obviously joking. Look at me. Do I look like the kind of person that would, enable that kind of crap? Um, Not at all inspired by the events that have been going on lately everywhere. My friend wanted to basically create a news website that was obviously full of it, and he's instructed me because he thinks I'm a good writer, and I told him I'm not, but he wanted me to do it anyway. He told me to write up my own segment, I guess, in a way. And I felt like as I was going through it, like I could read this off and force you all to listen. I mean, you don't have to. It's not really forcing. Gosh, I need to clean. There's so much dust over my computer. I haven't used it in a while. School sucks. Let me tell you all. It's go to it. Go to school, but it sucks. All right. You got ACT crap that they'll continue to pester you about even when you do it, and it's like a year since you've had to do it. What I'm getting at here is I have been stressed in the quarantine. I'm not even in quarantine, but they shut the schools down. That's not what we're here to. We're here to alleviate that kind of stress. So, where was I with this? Oh yeah, I didn't upload because I've been doing stuff. Life is stressful, and sometimes you just need to take a break. And honestly, I'm not really disappointing anyone by disappearing. I'm dying. Anyway, I wanted to record audio for this one and put it on YouTube, but I figured I'd give you my face anyway instead of a black screen. So you'll just see my the backdrop. Maybe I'll put something in there and just have images appear randomly. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, let's read. I'll put like a timestamp so you can just skip to the part where because I can edit now, so that's fun. Okay, so Mr. Eclsnizer instructed me to write for his website, which is known as Bloober News, which I will also put a link to as soon as he puts it up, because right now we're still in the editing phase, and so I thought I'd edit it, my segment, on camera, and my segment, Bloober Bites, is what I'm calling it until he tells me to change it to something else, is my brainchild right now, or one of them. So let's begin. Bloober Bites. And we're just going to edit this. I'm going to try to do voices, but we're going to go through and edit this right now because I'm terrible at editing my own stuff, and I have to read it aloud to make any semblance of any of this makes sense. Bloober Bites. Welcome back to Bloober Bites, this one-off segment where you can find all the news updates that may have been missed by the mainstream. This is Michael T. Mendex and Terry T. Error, and you're reading Bloober Bites. So I like the last name I gave this Michael character. I might put... I'm trying to... let's keep it on this page. We'll just keep blank page. So I chose Mendax is, I think, Latin for liar. It's not exactly high humor or whatever. It's not exactly highbrow. It was just, I thought it was funny. And so you've got Michael Liar and Terry T. Error, which is me. It's me. You can see it on the screen right now. And, yeah, that's me, and I'll try to make voices to make them distinct. I like the, yeah, I'll try to edit out dead space when I rant like this. Maybe we'll just have this whole thing unfiltered. and you're reading Bluebird Bites. Last we left off as an exciting new development broke out in the recent cows versus chickens debate, where esteemed food critic and lawyer Benedict Tomtom, who up until then, watch me stumble over my own words because I can't read aloud. I can read in my head. I don't know if anyone else has this problem. I can't read aloud. Who up until then had been arbitrating the debate, had been exposed as a lactose intolerant and had been biased towards the chickens up until that point. Reporters are standing by as a new arbitrator is found, but one thing is certain, this whole situation is foul. And a stain on the critics' once pristine record. Updates are slow, however, so while we await a conclusion to this debacle, we feel it prudent to continue bringing you all the latest news, which brings us to today's story. Maybe I'll have like stock images just going through while I read this. Yeah, real deep dive into my psyche because this is all coming out of my head. None of this has been edited or filtered by anyone else yet. This is all me, baby. Today's story comes to you from Arizona, where our correspondent in the field has been reporting updates on the recent weather patterns that the state has been experiencing for some time. For those of you just tuning in, the state of Arizona has been experiencing increases in unstable and, frankly, unsafe weather fluctuations since 1521. More specifically, massive droughts followed by violent and sudden monsoons that have all but killed the state's once vibrant agricultural economy. Nailed it. I got through that without tripping over my words. Nice. So when I was writing this, I figured I'd post ridiculousness and try to read it off as straight as possible. That's my ideal how you would write this. You wouldn't have them going like, oh, what am I writing? I like the idea of just a straight, even dry, melodic kind of voice, which is kind of I was going for a bit more, and now we welcome you. I was going for more of that. But like I like the idea of while you're reading this, it'll just be a dry, totally serious, deadpan, just reading it off. And so I thought that while writing, and I figured like that would help me influence how I was writing. And I kind of went with this, and I'll talk about more where I got the idea for this when I get into it, because right now this is the opening just bit. We haven't gotten to the main crux of this. So the reason behind the fluctuations were thought to be caused by the sun's rays heating the planet before being trapped in the atmosphere before being re-radiated by the greenhouse gases and emissions caused by everyday activities that have also been trapped in the atmosphere, thus destroying the ozone and allowing more and more radioactive rays from the sun to reach our planet and further upset the natural order of Mother Earth. Now, I'm not a scientist. I probably got something wrong in there. I'm going to go through it and try to make it as detailed and accurate to how greenhouse effect actually works, because then when it gets to the next part, it'll be even funnier when I do a 180 here. So keep that in mind. And however, after a recent Twitter post, the true culprit of the drought was revealed to be none other than God of the Harvest, Zordon. At first, it was believed that His Magnificence, Zordon, had simply forgotten to tend to the region due to his attention being split elsewhere, eventually followed by an overcompensation later in the year that has left the once fertile soil unusable. However, a recent interview with the celestial body has shown to be... See, I'm doing it again. I'm getting through it this time pretty well. Normally, I talk a lot faster when I read things out, and I'm tripping over a lot of stuff. So let me try that one again. However, a recent interview with the celestial body has shown another, more personal side to the pandemic. See, if I slowly enunciate everything, it'll come out a lot clearer. You'll comprehend my splot that I'm spitting out at you. See, I stumbled over everything there too. Ugh. I'm so bad at this. I could never narrate an audiobook because it'd just be me going, okay, let me try that one again. Yeah. Welcome to ASMR with Terry. Hopefully you are all into that, because that's what I'm spitting here. Our correspondent in the field, Terry, was one of the few journalists lucky enough to interview the ethereal being. However, Zordon's mere presence melted most of our cameras and recording equipment, leading to Terry being forced to use the tried and true method of writing everything down. Here is a heavily spell-checked transcript of the interview. Alright, so now we get to the interview, which is where I had the most fun with this, and I'll talk about it a bit as I get into it, because I had like a brain, thought. I was like, because, Eclsnizer, Eli, my friend, called me up, and he was like, I need you to write fake news. And I was like, okay, well, I need to be a bit ridiculous enough that, obviously people aren't going to believe it, but I also need it to be, well written enough that it makes sense, like it exists in this world. So I thought, okay, let's have one guy interview God, I guess. I don't know why, that was just kind of one of the first thoughts. I was like, okay, let's come up with something ridiculous, have him interview God, and that's kind of where most of my thoughts went. Everything I've read so far has just kind of been it felt natural that there would be an intro section where you talk about something else that already happened, the chicken and cows thing, which also came on a whim. But this is what I was mostly focusing my attention on, and I've had a lot of fun with it. And I was actually editing this a bit before you all came, so this is where I'm going to start editing on camera, because I want to talk about that process, because it's fun. Alright, this is the transcript of the interview. If I'm trying to do a voice, it probably means that's what I've written. You'll get a chance to read it, because again, I'm going to link this as soon as possible, so that everyone can go and read this thing, because you'll be able to read my section, his section, and maybe a few others. I haven't quite asked him if he has any other people, but you'll be able to read this full thing, and hopefully this will be a thing that'll happen more often. But here we go. Transcript of the interview between journalist Terry T. Error, which I haven't, let me stop one more time. I'm so proud of that name. Terry T. Terror, it's funny, laugh, and Zordon, God of the Harvest, spell checked by Michael T. Mendax. So, Mr. Zordon, am I okay to call you that? Zordon is fine, thank you. I can't do a deep voice. My voice is not deep. I have a very shrill voice, naturally. I'd need to get, one of my friends to come in here and do voices with me if I was to really get, a back-and-forth thing. But for now, you'll have to settle with me making use of my shrill voice with one of the characters, Terry, and doing my gosh darn best at a deep, booming voice. So, Mr. Zordon, am I okay to call you that? Zordon is fine, thank you. Yes. Well, first of all, Zordon, thank you for seeing me. I know what with your outrageously busy schedule, sitting down with a sinful mortal such as me can be a bit difficult most of the time. Okay, that sentence is good. Again, we're going to start editing here. With a sinful mortal such as me can be a bit, well, let's... ... That'll add space in so that it'll be a bit more, I guess. Yeah. It'll add a pause, seem a bit more natural. Sitting down with a sinful mortal such as me can be a bit, well, let's add, well, comma, difficult most of the time. It's no problem at all. Well then, getting right to the point, the people of Arizona are, and I think I speak for most of them when I say this. Okay, let me read that sentence one more time. And I think I speak for most of them when I say this. So I don't think we need the word this there. And you'll all get to see this. I don't want to show the thing right now. I have a few things I don't need. Anyway, you get the idea, just privacy stuff. Well then, getting right to the point, the people of Arizona are, and I think I speak for most of them when I say, see, that sounds a lot nicer, that's a lot better. I pulled out, because when I type in my head, when I'm reading this in my head, I'm like, okay, add more words, make them sound more intelligent if you add more words. When you read it aloud, it doesn't sound good. That's one thing I can say. If you're writing something and you were thinking, oh, if I add more words, you always want to go through, and I do this with everything, because I write a lot of stuff. If you go through, talking aloud, I guess, after you write, say, a paragraph, it's a good thing to read aloud, because when you read something aloud, you're kind of reading how another person would in their head, and there's always that disconnect. You think it's really good because, you wrote it and you're proud of it, but it might not sound as good as you want it to. So read it aloud, and everything should start sounding a bit nicer. You'll be able to edit it a bit easier. It'll be nice. Let me go through one more time in my head. Oh, also make sure to use correct quotations and grammar, because that is just, it's integral to the writing process to make sure that you punctuate everything correctly, especially commas, because that's one problem I have is going through. I have so many commas where they probably don't need to be, which is one of my biggest problems with writing, and I have to go through while I'm doing this and occasionally make sure I have all of them out of the way. Well, Mr. Terry. Well, Mr. Terry, I feel that I am big enough to admit that yes, as of late, the regularly scheduled rainfall have been, would have or has, that has would probably sound much better there, has been replaced. Well, Mr. Terry, I feel that I think I'm instead of I am. Well, Mr. Terry, I feel that I'm big enough to admit that yes, as of late, the I can't speak. There are just some words that I find hard to to speak. I feel that I'm big enough to admit that yes, as of late, the regularly, because I have to do that apparently, scheduled rainfall has been replaced with drought and famine, and I have indeed brought down monsoons unlike any other onto the people of Arizona. That much is true. But do keep in mind that I have in no way forgotten about the state and its people. Well, that is reassuring to hear that you haven't forgotten about them. I think I'm going to replace that with, well, it is reassuring. It is reassuring. So there's a thing, and I always forget what it's called, but I believe it's called dynamic writing, where you want to change. You don't want to go and then and then and then. You don't want to. Two different things. Basically, if you're going to write a certain way, say you keep using the word eventually. Don't keep using the word eventually, but also do. It's weird. Basically, what I just did. I was using the word that a lot. Or at least in my brain, it felt like I was using it a lot. Well, that is reassuring to hear that you haven't forgotten about them. So I said that word twice in the sentence, and it sounded a little repeaty. It didn't sound as well. So I'm going to replace it with it is. Well, it is reassuring to hear that you haven't forgotten about them. And I'm going to add an about, not because of a dynamic writing, I think there needs to be an about there. Well, it is reassuring to hear that you haven't forgotten about them. And then I'm going to go through one more time. Would it is or its work better? Well, it's reassuring to hear that you haven't forgotten about them. I'm going to keep it is. That's a much crisper sentence, you know? Well, it is reassuring to hear that you haven't forgotten about them. Being a deity with such an important task can't be easy. I put cannot, and I read it as can't, which probably means I should put can't instead of cannot, because cannot is a long word. When you're reading it, you want to say can't. I've done this before with stuff that I haven't even written, so I'm going to go through and change that. Excuse me. Being a deity with such an important task can't be easy, and splitting one's attention between so many continents must be tiring. That it is, Terry. That it is. Well, Zordon, as nice as it is... Yeah, that was a bad one. Well, Zordon, as nice as it is to be reassured, I think it's still safe to assume that as stressful as the duty may be, it is unlikely that any god, let alone one as powerful as you, would simply stop caring out of their... I put carry. Ugh. It is unlikely that any god, let alone one as powerful as you, would simply stop carrying out their duty without good reason. See, that's a sentence I was having issue with earlier. I'm going to change the word carrying. Would stop... I can't think of another word, though. I'm going to find another word. We'll come back. What's another word for carrying? Would simply cease their duty without... Would simply cease their godly duty without good reason. That is a much better sentence. I'll fix that. Would simply cease... You can hear my tip-tap because my keyboard sucks. Cease their godly duty. I put an I in duty for some reason. I don't even need to write duty because I already wrote it. Would simply... Okay, let's read the new sentence because the new sentence sounds a lot better. It is unlikely that any god, let alone one as powerful as you, would simply cease their godly duty without good reason. So, Zordon, if you are willing, would you mind telling us why exactly the state hasn't received steady rainfall for several centuries? Well, Terry, as of recently, the people of Arizona have ceased the annual sacrificings of virgins to me. Okay, let me talk about my idea towards this whole thing. So when I was coming up with the idea for this, it took me a bit. I wanted to do a sort of interview with a god thing because I felt, I didn't want, that wasn't the initial idea. The initial idea was I wanted to do something where it was like, it's a god that's like causing this problem. And that was, that along with the idea of, them taking it so seriously. Like, instead of being like, oh, it's a god, it'd be more like, well, I got an interview with the god of harvest. I wanted it to be something very taken seriously, but like as if this is a normal thing that's done a lot. And that kind of, that helped form the idea of this interview. I want it to be as if he's talking to like the CEO of a company instead of just instead of a god, you know? So I wanted to write it where he's still speaking to him in that like, oh, I'm a sinful mortal, like you would see in like a movie, like, oh, we sinful mortals, we're not worth. I want him to throw those keywords in, but I want him to talk to him and vice versa, as if it's a guy, an interviewer speaking to like a CEO of some company. And I think that's really funny. I know it's not exactly original, but I was thinking about that, and like that'd be funny. We want to do some sort of interview, like I just explained. Ooh, knocked the microphone. Okay. And when it gets to that, when it gets to the sacrificing of virgins bits, and it's still being taken like that, I think it really, the tone is steady. He doesn't, and I love how he reacts. Let me keep going. Well, Terry, as of recently, the people of Arizona have ceased the annual sacrificing of virgins to me. I keep saying sacrificings, but that's not even how I wrote it. I'm just adding an S while I'm speaking for no reason. Ah, yes, many have been speculating that the recent bill, that is, the End All Sacrificial Ceremonies bill, for those of you who aren't in the know, that has been in the works in Washington under the watchful eyes of politicians seeking to halt all sacrificial gatherings to you and your siblings, had in some way negatively affected your viewpoint on us lowly mortals. I wrote affecting because this sentence was edited recently, and I forgot to change it back to affected. Had in some way been negatively affecting, no wait, affecting was right, affecting your viewpoint on us lowly mortals. So this sentence I recently edited, and it's a bit janky. I'm going to make sure to go back and fix it, because right now it reads, ah yes, many have been speculating that the recent bill, that is, the End All Sacrificial Ceremonies bill, for those of you who aren't in the know, that has been in the works in Washington under the watchful eyes of politicians seeking to halt all sacrificial gatherings to you and your siblings, had in some way been negatively affecting your viewpoint on us lowly mortals. So one thing you want to keep in mind here is I have him mention the bill, but then immediately, because it's like a news broadcast, so he'd probably want to say something like this too, like for those of you who don't know, this is this bill. I want him to go on a tangent really quick to say what the bill is. However, in that you can do that in writing. You can have a person talking and be like, that is the this for those of you who don't know, and then go back to his original point in the same paragraph, and you can do that. But you need to make sure that he doesn't talk for too long before reverting back to the point. So when he goes, ah yes, many have been speculating that the recent bill, you need to be brief so that he can quickly get back to had in some way been negatively affecting your viewpoint on this. Now, mine is kind of brief. It's not brief enough. It's about 3 lines, and I might shorten it to 2. I might get rid of the that has been in the works. I want to keep that. Under the watchful eyes of politicians has been the works to cease all... Okay, I'm going to get rid of that, and now it reads as goes. For those of you who aren't... The End All Sacrificial Ceremonies bill, for those of you who aren't in the know, that has been in the works to halt all sacrificial gatherings to you and your siblings, had in some way been negatively affecting your viewpoint on us, lowly mortals. See, I think that sounds a lot better. When you're a bit more brief, you can still make a joke out of it, because he's, very casually mentioning there's a bill to stop this stuff. See, it's a lot snappier, he goes, ah yes, he says that, very quickly goes to the explains what the bill is and what its purpose is by removing the part where I mentioned the guys in Washington who have been watching the bill. I have made it snappier. It's still clear that it hasn't. It's still clear that it's in the works. The bill hasn't been passed yet, but yeah, because there's a joke later on I'll make with that. But it sounds snappier when you're writing. You want to make sure everything sounds snappy. You can draw out dialogue, but it's a good idea to try to keep it concise, unless the joke is that it's being drawn out, or if drawing out the dialogue in some way helps. Otherwise, it's always good to try to make sure that your dialogue is concise as possible in order to retain the reader or viewer's attention in some way. So be sure to keep that in mind. Well, now, negatively affecting my viewpoint is a strong way of putting it, even if it is the right way of putting it. No, I like to think of it as more of a, partnership. A good way to humanize a character without making them seem so robotic while they're talking is to add in sort of stumbles, I guess. I've been stumbling this whole time, so it's clear I'm not a robot. But when a character's reading, I wrote this originally knowing I was going to change it. But, I wrote this originally as, I like to think of it as more of a partnership, and that you continue to, and a good way, again, like I said, to humanize a person is to maybe make them stumble and correct themselves, kind of. In this situation, he's answering a question and then giving an explanation. So instead of just having one sentence, one and done, I can, without drawing it out, because that would negate my previous point, without drawing it out, I can humanize this character a little bit. I know he's a god, but the joke is he talks like a person. So I add in no. I like to think of it as more of a partnership. In that if you continue to sacrifice 7 pure and untainted virgins to me on the eve of the blood moon, I will continue to bestow upon you puny mortals steady rainfall to help you in your insignificant lives. It really is that simple. And, see, that sounds a lot nicer. It sounds better to the ears. It would have been fine if I'd left it as a one sentence. I keep hitting my mic because it's right here. It would have been fine if I had left it as a one sentence. It wouldn't have changed much. It wouldn't have been bad, but it becomes, like I said, crisper, nicer, snappier. It sounds more natural when you give them that kind of, when you allow a character to stutter, correct themselves. It sounds nicer, at least to me, and I know a lot of people agree with me in that. So just keep that in mind if you're writing anything. It really is that simple. It would seem so, and it's facts. See, I can't even speak correctly, and I keep saying that because if I stumble over my words and just go back, it sounds, at least to me, it doesn't. Anyway, and it's facts like this that have been drawing so much controversy towards the bill that was passed. Okay, see, I'm creating an inconsistency here. I've written that was passed, but it hasn't been passed yet is the joke. It hasn't been passed yet. This is something I must have missed, and it's good that we're finding it here because, again, going through and reading something aloud will allow you to find these inconsistencies. Controversy towards the bill. I can delete that, which will bring it to here. It would seem so, and it's facts like this that have been drawing so much controversy towards the bill. And to add to the controversy, these same politicians continue to sacrifice to other celestial beings, such as your brother, the god of lava, Balthiaz, or your sister, the god of pestilence, Cleotope. I had fun coming up with god names. I had some stuff, I'm pretty sure Balthazar is his name, I've heard. Balthiaz is what I changed it to. I think I heard Zordon somewhere, but, I like that name. It's a very, godly name. Do you hear a whistle while I'm speaking? I do. If that is the case, I'm sorry that you're hearing it in the ASMR, but unfortunately, I can't really do much about it. Sorry, I just heard that, and I was like, hopefully that's not bothering anyone. That's just how I talk. I'm trying to keep my voice a bit low for this recording because I know if I talk in my regular voice, then you're all going to get really, really annoyed, and I talk really quickly is the problem, and I have a very shrill voice, so if I try to remind myself to talk a bit slower while I'm doing this. Plus, it's a bit more clear while I'm talking. You're never going to understand what I'm saying anyway, so I don't know why I bother trying to give tips or whatever. So let's read that one more time, because it sounds better now. It would seem so, and it's facts like this that have been drawing so much controversy towards the bill. And to add, oh, I didn't even catch this. I have written to add, like I've written to add twice in a row. So it reads, and to add. That is bad. I can't believe I left that in there and didn't notice that the first time. And to add to the controversy, the same politicians that are trying to pass this bill. See, I've written it as if I've brought up the politicians before, these same politicians, however, I didn't mention them. Because again, earlier, I removed that part to make the previous sentence sound better. So, instead of these same politicians, I'm going to write the same, and to add to the controversy, the same politicians trying to pass the bill the same politicians trying to pass the bill continue to sacrifice to other celestial beings, such as your brother, the god of lava, Balthiaz, or your sister, the god of pestilence, Cleotopia. Yes, well, first, I'd just like to say thank you to those who stood on the right side of history and fought for the revoking of the bill. That being said, I don't condone any acts of violence taken out on the politicians who passed the law. And despite this, I am happy to hear that my siblings have been receiving their sacrifices on time and consistently. It's always good to hear someone that has so much authority. Well, okay, I wrote this sentence weird. This is one that I wrote weird that I've been trying to fix. For some reason, I've had a hard time with it. Here, let me read this out slowly so we can all hear it. It's always good to hear someone. See, there's another one of those repeats. So let me get rid of that extra someone. It's always good to hear that someone with so much authority does not tend to hold a grudge. So let me get rid of tend. And now it sounds a lot better. It's always good to hear that someone with so much authority does not hold a grudge. And we're also going to remove does not and just do doesn't. It's always good to hear that someone with so much authority doesn't hold a grudge. Well, I never said that. Oh. Well, continuing. And here's another thing. If you're going to say what I'm doing right here, which is making everything seem normal, it is a good idea, at least in my eyes, with my writing, to occasionally have a character break conventions as if something that happened surprised them. This whole time he's been talking about sacrifices and all of that, and he's been talking about it as if it's normal. Both of them have. But having this one character kind of disconnect from that by having him react to I never said that with a oh. Well, continuing, it that kind of break from the mold can work in some situations, that being one of them, because it kind of, I can't really explain it in too well. I just know that, listen, I know a lot of these things, but I can't really put into good detail how it does work because I'm terrible with words. I'm sure somebody could, and I'm sure you get the idea, but that break from reality, that then suddenly snapping back into it, can create it helps the reader feel a bit more, I guess, engaged in it, to hear, again, it goes towards making the characters feel less robotic if you have them react to certain things in certain ways instead of just taking it on the nose. Because when a character doesn't react to nonsense as if it's nonsense, that's funny until that's the only joke. So if you break it up occasionally, it helps keep the reader reading, I guess. There, I put it into words. I did it. I did it. I do know what I'm talking about. At least that's the stupid explanation I'm giving. Oh, well, continuing, do you think that some of the reasons that sacrifices are still being made to your siblings is due to the price, I forgot to add the word is due to the price not being nearly as high? To use your brother and sister as an example again, Balthiaz only requires a sacrifice of 3 virgins, and Cleotopia doesn't even ask for a blood sacrifice. Rather, she requires that all firstborn sons are branded with her mark. See, nonsense, and he's just reading it like, yes, this is normal. Don't react, this is normal. And I love that. I love that in writing when people can react to nonsense like it's normal, because it's always fun. It's why I like cartoons so much, because it's normal to them, but it's it's funny. I had a ball writing this, by the way. I can't express how much fun this is to write, because again, I love cartoonish crap like this. Well, Terry, I have thought about this, and there it is again. Well, Terry, I have thought about this, and I decided that I can do whatever I want, because I am literally a god. Well, that you are, Zordon, god of the harvest. Final question. Shoot. Alright, I'm just gonna hurry and change a thing. I'm gonna put a word there. Well, because I just have him react, that you are, Zordon, but I read it as well, that you are, Zordon. Sometimes you'll also do that, where I'll, like, at least me, I'll read a word, and it's not actually there, but, like, I read that word as if it was there, and it's like, oh, that word sounded nice there, I should add that in. Well, that you are, Zordon, god of the harvest. Final question. Shoot. Now, it's common knowledge that Arizona is not the only landmass to Seesaw sacrifice to you. Are there any specific reasons that other states and countries have not suffered your wrath? Well, consider what I do to Arizona a sort of warning of much worse things to come to the rest of the world if sacrifices do not commence again in, say, the next 3 to 8 years, depending on how things go. Well, a warning like that is sure to make some of the guys at Washington and pretty much everywhere else on Earth really reconsider the recent bills that are about to be passed. That are about to be passed. Because again, the joke is they haven't been passed yet and they're fighting against that. And I originally wrote this if it had already been passed, but then again, edits and it just sounds nicer. You sometimes cut stuff comes down to a fly. I never have written a first draft that ever sounded nice. I read some... Any writer will tell you that. The first draft, don't expect your first draft, or your second, or your third. I'm actually on my fourth draft with this. I had the idea. You're seeing a very polished version of what has been a process. This is like my fourth draft. Sometimes with one-off jokes like this, it doesn't take as long, because I have other stuff that I'm on like my 8th, 9th, 10th draft, because it's just ridiculous. Writing is hard, but like something like this where it's a one-off joke where I have the joke in my head and it's just up to dialogue now, that isn't as hard. But when you're writing more advanced and bigger story, it can be a bit harder, I guess, to write, and therefore it requires more drafts. This has not. This has been pretty easy, all things considered, because again, I had the idea, I had the joke, it's just been polishing stuff, basically, instead of rewriting everything like it normally is for me. Well, a warning like that is sure to make some of the guys at Washington and pretty much everywhere else on Earth really reconsider the recent bills that are passed. What I like about some of these lines is you can read them in different ways. Like, I can read it as some of the guys at Washington and pretty much everywhere else, or I can read it as and some of the guys at Washington and pretty much everywhere else on Earth. Like, it's all up to how you want to read it. I know I said earlier I want it to be read as if, like, they're reading this straight and like this is normal, but everyone reads things differently, especially someone who reads this and hasn't seen this. So I like that just by adding a couple of dots next to a word and adding that pause, it can allow a reader to read it however they want it to be read. They can have it where there's an actual pause or any of the two ways I showed, and I love that. It's good writing. Just a couple of dots can like add so much character, I think, to a reaction. I would hope. I don't want to call down Furious Vengeance, but if I will... I would hope. I don't want to call down Furious Vengeance, but I will if I must. Now, are there any other questions, Mr. Terry? None that I can think of right now. Hopefully sacrifices will commence soon. And thank you, Zordon, God of the Harvest, for seeing me. See, I haven't added that. I need to add in a thank you. And thank you, Zordon, God of the Harvest, for seeing me, for letting me on, for letting me interview you. This has been Terry with Bloober News, signing off, and that ends the thing. I think that was the good part. That's like the main thing that I wrote. And now I just have to wrap it up. You know, much like when you're in school and you're writing the essays and the teacher says you need beginning, in middle, and then the end. And then you go, well, why though? I could just sum it up in a sentence. Why make me write a whole paragraph on why the settlers were bad? I know why they're bad. You know, I can sum it up in a sentence. I love just going off like that. Not even because I think it's funny, but because I love people's reaction. Because their reactions are so caught off guard usually. And I love that. I love causing that reaction in people where they're just like, what was that? They don't even have to think it was funny. They can get downright annoyed. But I love it. I'm not shameless is what I'm saying. I do have limits of how much I'll go off. But like, I love, and I write that. I write like that a lot. I'll write where a character just kind of goes off, and I'll have characters either react like, what was that? Or just completely normal. Again, that sort of like nonsense stuff that nobody reacts to. I think that's, I think I'm like that a lot where I'll just go off like that. And that's a tangent. I just felt the need to explain that, what I just did, because I think that's funny. I love getting a reaction like that. And I feel like that was evident in what I just read. As of right now, the people of Earth remain on good terms. Oh, we're back to Michael. As of right now, the people of Earth remain on good terms with Zordon. And one would hope that things continue to stay this way. To stay that way. And one would hope that things continue to stay that way. All that can be said for now is, if you have not contributed to the revoking of the end all sacrificial ceremonies bill that was recently passed, that doesn't make any sense. If you have not contributed to the revoking of the so I guess it corrected the of, even though that of needs to be. I hate when the autocorrect thing says a word shouldn't be there, even though grammatically it would make less sense if it wasn't there. I hate when it does that because it bothers me that I can't get rid of that line. If you have not contributed to the revoking of the End All Sacrificial Ceremonies bill, do so now. See, this is the paragraph where I had the most like changes that need to be made, so I'm glad we're doing that now. Do so now by voting in November and donating to the many charities that have been formed to help fund the movement. If you are unable to donate, I hit the thing again, no. If you are unable to donate, then you can of course show up to the rallies that have started being held. That was a bad sentence. Then you can of course show up to the rallies that have started. Actually, no, that is a good sentence. Have started being held, or even sign up to be a sacrifice once the bill is revoked. I gotta rewrite that because I wrote the event that the bill's passed, so I need to write, or even sign up to be a sacrifice once the bill is revoked. Once the bill is revoked. One thing is for sure, with luck, Arizona can soon return to being the agricultural powerhouse it once was. Okay, so I wrote the agricultural powerhouse it once was in time. That doesn't make any sense because I already mentioned they can return to being. See, I write this stuff, but I don't see it until I read it aloud, and then I can realize, oh, that's bad. That's a bad sentence. One thing is for sure, with luck, Arizona can soon return to being the agricultural powerhouse it once was. So we'll get rid of that in time because it just sounds bad. And of course, we will be sure. I'm going to add in and of course. Nice. One more. And of course, we will be sure to update you all as the crisis. Okay. And of course, we will be sure to update you all as this crisis. I stumbled again. This crisis develops. Thank you for joining us on Bloober Bites. This is Michael T. Mendex signing off. Okay. I did a lot, and it was probably kind of hard to get a grasp on what exactly was happening because I kept interrupting everything to speak. But I'll be sure to link it to the actual the website that Eclsnizer will set up. I don't know when that'll happen, so I'll just have this video on the backlog. You'll probably see it a day or two afterwards. I'll get in contact with him and make sure it's all put up and whatnot. For now, I'll just leave all with it. I'm back. I don't know how frequently I'm going to upload. This might be the first one in a while, but I can't say for certain if I'm going to keep consistently uploading. I was never consistent, but you get the idea. I'm hoping that at least this will be like, hey, he's that one dude who I forgot I was subscribed to, that I forgot to unsubscribe to. He's alive. Again, I'll link Eclsnizer Eli in the description down below, so you can go check out. He does music and motivational speeches. It's really cool stuff, and he deserves way more subscribers than I do. Way more, because he makes actual good music. And again, I'll put the thing to the website in the description as well once it's up. In the meantime, subscribe to me, like me, please like me. In this time of quarantine, all my friends are dead. No, they aren't. Well, they might have, but he'll be fine. Like, comment if you want. I love writing. I don't really know what else we could write. Anything, but maybe I'll do more of these if Eclsnizer's website continues to do stuff. I'll continue to post onto that, and we'll do more of this maybe. And yeah, that's all. I told you, subscribe, like, comment, so many stupid things. YouTube. One of these days, they're just gonna update the platforms. It's just gonna be like, I don't even know. I can't even make jokes about how ridiculous it is because it's so ridiculous. But anyway, it was good to be back. Good to see everyone, and have a good day in quarantine. Don't touch your face like I have this whole video. And of course, don't go near people 6 feet. Be clean. Just be careful. Don't touch grandma. All right. Just everyone needs to like hose themselves in hand sanitizer and eat toilet paper so that your body can continue to heal itself as you slowly die to a virus that you actually caught like 4 days ago when you shook your neighbor's hand. Bad on you. You should have known better. Alright, I'll stop talking. Bye.